if the Paris climate change is to be successful, there's one main thing that these countries need to agree on: trust. And the United States is already not doing their part, because today the House approved a provision that allows the livestock industry, the red meat industry, to not report their emissions. And we're talking about something that does not sound as relevant or as important, but let me break it down so you understand how important it is to add the emissions that are coming from manure and the cows themselves into the equation, Nick, because so far the part of the meat industry that provides reporting on their emission is just the transportation of it. But there's another element, the methane, that gets emitted by the manure and the cows that belch and fart methane. And methane is so much more dangerous in terms of holding heat in the atmosphere, although it disperses in the atmosphere much quicker, around 12 years compared to CO2, which is the standard measure or gas measured in global warming. But we see that the lobbying of this industry, of the livestock industry, has made it very difficult, if you will, for these companies to get on with the times and do the right thing and report these gases, because what happens today is that for them it's really difficult. It's easier for them just to let the manure sit, really, because if they try to recapture it, then they have to go through the EPA and get involved in all these legislation, not legislation, but all this documentation and all of this regulation that for them is expensive. They don't have any benefit. For them it's just easier to leave it there because they don't have to pay money for it. They don't have to be held accountable for it, so they just let it rest. Because of the amount of meat that we consume in this country and the projections that in the next 20 years, the amount of meat demanded in the planet is going to raise for 70%. This is a number that is going to make the difference in between reaching that 2 degrees goal that we agree in the COP21 conference or not.
Yeah, make it or break it. But, you know, going back to the manure and the methane that is released from that manure and the cow farts too, I guess, you know, they can reuse that and use it as energy,
Correct.
right? So they capture that. And so there is some incentive, but still, no one really sees...
It's more trouble than incentive, because for them to do the right thing, they have to do an investment in infrastructure. They have to build these tanks where they put the manure and the methane is recaptured and used as energy. In order to qualify and to get the permit to do so, you have to go through these long processes that for the companies there's no benefit. It's just a trouble.
Right, you know, and you go back to 2008, the EPA
Correct.
tried to do the exact same thing that we're talking about right now, and you know, what they required, and in order to get the numbers in place and have this thing go through, they needed annual reports from the biggest meat producers. Did anybody get back to them with one annual report? No, not one annual report was submitted, because people, like you said, it's easier to just continue doing what we're doing and not, we'll worry about, you know, the environment tomorrow or the next day, but for now this is making a lot of money. This is the way we've been doing it for a long time, so we're going to continue to do that. Same thing with fossil fuels and everything else that we could talk about regarding the environment, but we're talking about meat here, and the same rules apply.
And it's sad because it's a loophole, because it really, since it hasn't been measured in the past, and most of the measuring and the agreements around the world regarding climate change are based on CO2 emissions, these emissions are kind of like put aside and it's like, well, we'll worry about them later. But in reality, scientists from many different universities have come together and say, if we overlook this situation of methane produced by the manure that is created by every single livestock facility in the planet and the belching and the farting, that although funny to imagine that the cow farts are going to have an effect in global warming, we produce so many cattle heads every year in this planet that it adds up to a significant amount. If you multiply that till 2050, we could be seeing a disaster, a natural disaster, just because the US decided not to account for the methane produced in livestock industry in this country.